Hello, and welcome to the next installment of Exploring the Science of Getting Rich. Now, in this video, I wanted to talk about a 60-day challenge that I'm embarking on, because I'm all about experimenting. I'm all about testing. So one of the things that I've learned is not to trust necessarily what other people say, and that doesn't mean that I'm being distrustful. It just means that if I want to find out if something works or not, then I have to test it and see how I respond or how it responds to me. So, for example, that's one of the things I did with my eating habits. If a particular prescribed nutritional plan was being suggested, to see if it actually did what it said it did, then I'd have a go and experiment, become my own human experiment, if you like. And the same's right for this, and it's one of the things that Bob Proctor talks about quite a bit of, don't accept everything that I say, but don't discard everything I say. So it's having that open mind, approaching things with an open mind, with a playful, experimental mind of I wonder if, would this work if, that kind of thing. So the 60-day challenge that comes from this book is to essentially read 3 specific chapters. Okay. So the first chapter is chapter 4, which is titled The First Principle in the Science of Getting Rich. Okay, so there's 4. The second chapter is chapter 14, which is called The Impression of Increase. And the third chapter is chapter 6, which is entitled Gratitude. So what Bob is suggesting we do, and actually this was passed on to him by some of his mentors, is that every day for 60 days that you actually read each of those chapters in turn, make notes, digest it fully, and start to see what happens. So if we think about sort of some of the opportunities, if you like, or the information it's talking about as a summary, chapter 4, that first principle, talks about the fact that thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. The stuff from which all things are made is a substance which thinks, and a thought of form in this substance produces the form. So it's pointing broadly to the sense that everything that's ever been created has originated from original thought, which kind of makes sense. So if you think of things like, if you think of stuff like, planes, for example, planes didn't exist until somebody had an idea about what a plane might look like, or what it might do, or how it might fly. And the evolution of experimenting with planes went through various guises until the Wright brothers ended up producing something which worked, So it kind of makes sense that thought creates everything in that sense, So that's kind of the premise of chapter 4. Chapter 14, The Impression of Increase, talks about everybody that you interact with, you should leave with the impression of increase. Okay, so if we're being in service to people, if we're interacting with people in a meaningful way, then the best way to do that is to leave everybody feeling better than they were before they met us, and that can be through a variety of ways, by helping people, by making suggestions that might actually allow somebody else to grow. I guess we could point to the fact that things like coaching are trying to achieve that aim, if you like. But something which leaves any person that we come across, any person that we speak to or interact with, leaving with a sense, or watching videos, if you watch this and you kind of get an idea about something, then that's a sense of increase, isn't it? Because you've had something that you didn't have before. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to make you, magically rich overnight, but it might do if the idea that you then take action on, and you start doing stuff, and that then becomes, the way that you increase your life in that sense, Similarly, if I'm offering advice to people, or I'm talking to people about nutritional information about what they could be eating, then that's leaving them with a sense of increase. So it might be a sense of increase from a perspective of hope, maybe that they never had before, because they can see that whilst they think they've tried everything, they actually haven't, and there are alternatives that maybe they hadn't considered before. But then also the sense of increase in terms of, potential years of life, or enjoyment of the years that they've got in life. So that's increase. That's what we're all trying to aim for, in that sense. And then chapter 6 talks about this attitude of gratitude. Being grateful for what we actually do have. Now that's slightly different from actually settling for what we've got, which is a different thing, because that doesn't suggest, going from the chapter 14, that doesn't suggest a process of increase, does it? We can be grateful for what we've got at the moment, but still want to progress and increase ourselves. We don't necessarily have to have a status quo for the rest of our lives. But if we are recognizing what we can be grateful for, and that's the process, it's more about the energy behind it. It's more about the energy that we bring to, are we grateful for the things that we've got in life, rather than thinking about the things that we haven't, which carries a completely different energetic charge in that sense. So it's more about the energy that we're coming from, the place that we're coming from, and how, if we look at things and are grateful for things and look at it in a positive perspective, I guess, how that can have an impact on the energy we put out into the world, and based upon the laws of physics, then sort of the energy that we attract to us. So if you feel like joining in, like I say, for the next 60 days, if you've got a copy of the book, next 60 days, read chapters 4, 14 and 6 in that order every day. Make notes, read through your notes, because certain things or different things might come up on different days for you, based upon where you are. Okay, love to hear what you're seeing from that, or what you're hearing from this video. So like, subscribe, ding-a-ling bell notification, or comment below if there's something that you see as valuable. It'll be really interesting to see what people experience as they go through the 60 days. I guess I should mention that if you kind of get through and you're on day 8, and then you forget to read for a couple of days, when you start again, reset the timer, so go day 1 and then do a 60 days. So it's aiming for 60 consecutive days. The odds are it might extend beyond that, but I'll find that out by doing it as well. So thanks for listening, thanks for your attention, if you made it this far, and I'll see you next time. Okay, ta-da.